Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today for Statistics Solutions. My name is Justin D'Souza. I'm a quantitative specialist. During today's webinar, we are going to discuss SPSS data cleaning and management steps. So I'm going to go through the entire presentation first, and if you have questions, you can type those into the chat box or the Q&A box, and I will do a Q&A session at the end. My colleague Brittany will be providing hyperlinks in the chat box. If you have any questions about the services we provide, you can check out those hyperlinks. And we'll send everyone a copy of the recording of today's webinar, as well as the PowerPoint. All right. First, I'll give a brief overview of the services we provide at our company, Statistics Solutions. Then we'll dive into today's topic about SPSS data cleaning and management, and we'll go through an example spreadsheet. Then we'll conclude with a summary and a Q&A session. So on this slide, you can see all the different components of the dissertation that we assist with. We have methodologists and we have literature review specialists. So we can help you in any point in the dissertation. If you've hit a roadblock, please reach out and we can help expedite the process for you. Need help framing research questions and hypotheses, determining what is the best analysis approach to address your research questions, figuring out a gap in the literature, or finding a theoretical framework. We can help with all of these components. And we can even crunch your numbers for you if you need help with the actual statistical analysis portion. So if you have questions, you can give us a call at 727-442-4290. And on this slide, I'm sure many of you have already seen this if you've checked out our website, but you can see some hyperlinks to view past webinars in the webinar archive, and you can see what webinars we have upcoming using this webinar link at the top. All right, so once you collect data, assuming you've closed your data collection, either you're using a survey or maybe you're using archival data, the same steps apply regardless of which data collection approach that you selected. So the first thing you want to do is really clean your data. Maybe you received your data from SurveyMonkey or Qualtrics, and you need to know the next steps. So the first thing that I tend to do is I add an ID variable to every participant, so we can keep a track of who is in the study, who might be coming out. We have a running record of every person. And this is a de-identified number, a confidential number. You don't tend to want to use names or addresses or email addresses. You want to keep things confidential. Unless you're doing a pre and post test, you might need to have an identifier of some sort to match people when they come back after an intervention. So first, I add an ID variable. And then the next step is naming your variables of interest. Okay, so maybe you have demographics, gender, age, ethnicity, experience. And then maybe you jump into your questionnaire, your primary Likert scale questionnaire, or maybe you gave a test, an objective test where people obtain a score. So you want to name all your variables of interest, use a very short phrase. Don't have the full survey question listed. Keep it short and concise. Job satisfaction 1, 2, 3, and so forth. And one of the best pieces of advice I can give is saving your spreadsheet often. Save a new copy every time you make a major adjustment, even minor adjustments, recoding, checking for outliers. Once you remove someone, save a new copy of the spreadsheet, so you can keep a running record of the adjustments you're making. Okay, so and here we'll go step by step. On this first slide, I have a sample spreadsheet here in SPSS, and this was downloaded directly from SurveyMonkey. And this is how it comes out. So SurveyMonkey and Qualtrics and Amazon MTurk, they tend to provide the data in a very usable format. You don't have to make too many adjustments. The key thing you want to look for are that your variables are separate columns, or your survey questions are individual columns and your rows are individual participants or units of interest. So on this survey, we had first we had a demographic question just for experience, years of service, and then we have 7 questions about leader effectiveness. We have 5 questions about job satisfaction, or 6 questions. And then we have 5 questions about organizational performance. So this is variable view in SPSS. You can see the variable names right here, which right now, this doesn't mean much to us. It automatically just puts Q1, Q2, Q3. We will adjust that. You can see the actual question names under labels and what the survey was asking. And finally, you can see the Likert scale values in this final column. So all 3 of these surveys used a strongly disagree to strongly agree Likert scale. Then I would take a look at data view and check to see some key things. Do we have an identifier already? No, we do not, so we'll need to add one. How do missing responses look? We do have some cases where participants may have consented, but then they did not respond to anything after. A case like this, I would remove completely because they responded to years of service, but nothing else. So cases like that, I would remove these cases right here that just, they did not respond to anything. I would take those out, keep a mental note that we probably need to take those out. But then you have cases like this where a participant responded to 99% of it, but then just they didn't respond to 1 question. There are many ways you can handle that. We'll discuss that coming up in the presentation, but you can use imputation, you can use mean or median replacement for cases like this. Okay, the first step is adding an ID. Okay, and usually I make that the first column or the first variable. We need to see how many people we have. We have 91 participants. So a quick way you can do that in Excel, start the list. 1 through 91, 1, 2, 3, and then drag to 91. Copy that. For some reason, you can't do that step in SPSS for whatever reason. And so this is our ID. Then we have leader effectiveness. You just need to start the list couple, and then you can drag down. So for this, we had 7 different items. Satisfaction. This one we had 6. And finally, for organizational performance, have 5 items plus. So you can do a split screen to efficiently copy and paste this. Leadership effectiveness, copy this down to here, job satisfaction, and organizational performance. Okay, something I also meant to point out is you can see most of the data is in numeric format. We can see leader effectiveness and job satisfaction. We have numbers, right? But for organizational performance, the Likert scale is written out. It wasn't collected as numbers. So that's another mental note, is that we will probably need to change this back to numbers so we can score this questionnaire. Okay, so we took care of number 1, we added an ID, then we named every variable of interest, then save. Okay, that's the next step. We're going to save the spreadsheet. Be very specific. Sample data, I would put the sample size in here, n equals 91. We have 91 people right now, and put today's date on it. All right. First steps are done. Next step is recoding any Likert scale data that's written in words. We need to convert it to numbers. Okay, so from string format to numeric format. Then you need to take a look at the scoring instructions for your survey. There might be reverse coding that needs to apply. The reverse coding is used when you have negatively phrased items on a survey. So the 1 to 5 Likert scale, maybe it was collected like this, but we need to invert it. So a 1 is strongly agree and a 5 is strongly disagree. Okay. All right, so the first thing is changing from string to numeric. And to do this, we will go to transform and recode into same variables. Then I'm going to move over all of these organizational performance items to the right box. Then we need to assign a 1 to 5. So strongly disagree. The quick way you can do this is just copy and paste the words from the spreadsheet into this box. So we need to click right here, old and new values. And then I'm going to take strongly disagree there. Strongly disagree becomes a 1, add. Then disagree 2. I'm just copying and pasting it. And I think it's really important to copy and paste verbatim from here. Because if you have the slightest space, like if it was neither agree nor double space disagree, it's not going to know what to swap for numbers. So you need to be very specific. Agree will be 4 and strongly agree will be 5. Now, with almost every SPSS command, you can click OK, and that is going to run this code, or you can click paste. Paste is going to provide a syntax file for you. So if I click paste, this is what automatically opens. This is a SPSS syntax file, which allows you to quickly replicate procedures that you're using instead of going through menus and finding, hey, what do I need to click? You can just run syntax. And this is good for if another statistician or someone else is reviewing your data, they can see the logical steps made. So you can highlight this code and then click this green arrow. You'll see all of these words are going to change to numbers, just like that. Still thinks that these are string because it has a little A character here. So we need to change that to numeric, like that. Okay, the next thing is looking at reverse coding. Now, I know for a fact that for leader effectiveness and organizational performance, there's no reverse coding that's needed. However, for job satisfaction, you'll see it depends how questions are phrased. Okay, it depends how the wording of the question is presented. So if someone, for this question, my job responsibilities are clear, if they say a 5, then they strongly agree with this item. That means they have higher job satisfaction. Or I am paid fairly. If someone agrees with that item or that phrase, then that means they have strong job satisfaction. However, for a question like this, I am not satisfied with my job security. If someone responds a 5 to that, and if a 5 is strongly agreed, then that means they have low job satisfaction. So this is a negatively phrased item that we need to flip the Likert scale. Okay, so right here, these are the 2 items. I'm not provided with the tools and equipment I need to do my job, and I'm not satisfied with my job security. Those are 2 negatively phrased items. So what we need to do is go to transform. You can use the same option as we used before, recode into same variables, but for this, I tend to do recode into different variables. That way we keep a copy. We have the original non-reverse coded item in here, and then we'll have the reverse coded one as well. So we need job satisfaction 2 and 4, like that. Then you need to provide a new name for these variables. Job satisfaction 2, reverse, change, and job satisfaction 4, reverse. All reverse coding is flipping the Likert scale. Once I click old and new values, we just need to say a 1 becomes a 5, 2 becomes a 4, 3 stays the same. You don't actually need that one, but I tend to include it just for the visual. of seeing, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's going up and down the Likert scale. Again, we can click paste. So if someone jumped into this project, they can say, hey, looks like you did some reverse coding. And you can add notes to syntax as well. So for this first command, all you have to do is add an asterisk at the beginning like that, and you can write a comment. So this was changing from string to numeric. And then for this one is reverse coding negatively phrased items. To be very specific. Okay, so then we'll just highlight this code and click the green arrow. And now we have job satisfaction 2 and 4 reversed. Okay, all we need to do is put those in the correct spot. Job satisfaction 2, job satisfaction 4, and then move the old items to the bottom. So you don't actually use them, but you have them there for reference. This one. I'm adding the labels to the new items. And now the Likert scale is flipped for those 2 questions. So it's not strongly disagree up to 5 strongly agree. It's really 1 is strongly agree, 2 is agree, 3 is neither agree nor disagree. Like that. Then you can copy and paste that there. So now we're good to go. I think that is everything on this slide. So again, we did some major steps. I would save the spreadsheet again. And here you can just say reverse coded items. All right, the next step is looking at missing data. Okay, there are many ways to handle missing data depending on what reference or what source you're using. There's ways you can replace by imputing, which means predicting the missing responses, and that's kind of a complex procedure. But you can also swap missing values with the average or the median of a column. For more beginner statisticians, that's what I would recommend to do. Is you can replace the missing values with the average. So to do that, or, in this case, I would use a median replacement because we have Likert scale data. Okay, the first thing we'll do is just take people out that did not respond. And there's a quick way to do that. If you just take any column and sort it in ascending order like this, it's going to bring all the missing data to the top. So all of these cases I would take out. Okay. Quite a significant step there. So I would resave this. Now we have 86 people. 86, and this was remove 5 non-responses. All right, and then the remaining, you can see there's some cases here that just missed an item here and there. For those, I would use median replacement. Okay, we'll go to data. I'm sorry, we'll go to transform and then replace missing values right here. And instead of really digging through and figuring out which items do I need, I'm just going to put everything in there. We don't need to pick and choose. We need to just swap everything median. So just to expedite this, I'll use the mean for this example because you have to go 1 by 1 and change every single one to median. But you can use a mean or median replacement. I've seen both methods are used. Then we will click paste. We have the syntax. So this is the syntax for replacing values with mean. Then you highlight this code and you click this green arrow again. And what this is going to do is it's going to create copies of every single one of our variables, but it's going to swap missing values with the mean or the average. You'll see leadership effectiveness 1 is up here, but there's also a 1 _1 down here. This has the replaced missing values. Okay, so let's find an example here. This one right here. Job satisfaction 6. So this is the original item right here. And as I scroll to the right, over here, here's the replaced missing value. So you can use means. For this one, I would probably use median, so you're not necessarily getting a decimal value, you get a actual whole number potentially. Okay, so the last thing I would do there is take the labels right here. We need the labels for these questions and just copy and paste it right here. So here we have replace values. The next step is a follow-up on what I said earlier. You need to have the scoring instructions for your survey. That's fairly important. You don't want to make your own scoring instructions if you're using a previously validated survey. And most of the time you take a mean or sum of the respective items to make a composite score. So that's the next step, is we need to create composite scores, because in general, you don't want to examine 7 leadership effectiveness items on their own. You want to build an overall leadership effectiveness variable. Likewise with job satisfaction and organizational performance. So to do this, we will go to transform and compute variable. And then we'll give it a name. So leadership effectiveness overall, like that. And most of the time, the most common procedure is take an average or a mean. Do that, you can type mean right there. And it's very important, I'm not using the original items here. I need to use the median replaced items at the bottom. You know, just for consistency, I'm going to remove these ones so we're not getting confused. Okay, so leader effectiveness overall and mean of item 1. And you can do this 2 ways. You can put (2), (3), all the way up to 7, or if you have a long list, you can just do leadership 1, 2, leadership 7, like that. Then click paste. I'll do the other 2. Job satisfaction. All right, now we have the code for 3 composite scores. Okay, so composite scores. Then we'll highlight this code and click the green arrow. Now at the end of our spreadsheet, we are going to have 3 new variables of interest. And you can see now these are decimals because it's adding the Likert scale responses and then dividing by how many items there were. So that's how we're seeing decimals as possibilities. The next step is removing potential outliers. Now, this is something you don't have to do. This is kind of a standard that most of the time you want to check for outliers, but sometimes you don't want to remove them. If you're looking at test scores or something like that, sometimes it's important to keep everybody in the study so you have an actual depiction of how people scored. And taking outliers is kind of skewing reality in a way. So you want to keep outliers in sometimes, but depending on what tests you run, you know, t-tests or regressions or ANOVAs, one of the prerequisites for those tests is that you don't have outliers. You have to, it's really contingent on what your committee wants. Some committees like outliers in, some want them out. So to check for outliers, what we can do is standardize the values. Okay, so we use something called z-scores. Real easy to do this. All you do is you go to Analyze and Descriptive Statistics and Descriptives. Then we're going to put in the composite scores that we just developed into the right box. And then we're going to check mark this box at the bottom, save standardized values as variables. Once I click OK, I'm going to create copies of these variables, but it's going to be a z-score instead. So you can see the original score right here, or the original variable, and the z-score has a z in front of it. Now, Tabachnik and Fidel, quite a common reference for statistics. They say that outliers correspond to z-scores that go beyond 3.29 or below negative 3.29. So to check that, all you have to do is sort these columns, the z-scores, in ascending and descending order. So if you sort in ascending, you can see the lowest value here is negative 0.97. So negative 0.97 is not below negative 3.29, so we don't have any outliers there. And then sort descending, the highest z-score we have is 2.79. So no outliers on the positive end. And then you do the same thing for these two. This one's rather close, 3.24 is just below 3.29. So it's not technically an outlier. This person, you can see they scored a 4 on job satisfaction. So they had quite a high score compared to everyone else. That's where the z-score is coming from. And then organizational performance, no outliers in the small direction and no outliers in the large direction. Okay, so it looks like the final sample size is going to be 86. I would save that here. Final spreadsheet. And then you can test for reliability. That's another thing. Cronbach Alpha is a fairly popular reliability check. And what that's doing is it's making sure participants were consistent in responding to the question. To do this, you go to Analyze, Scale, and Reliability Analysis. And all you need to do is put in the items for each survey. Leadership effectiveness, all 7 items go in this box. You give it an overarching name. And you can click paste. We have the syntax, and then you just highlight, click the green arrow. And we can see that the reliability for leader effectiveness was 0.97, which is really good. It just means that if people were saying, I strongly agree to one item, in general, they were agreeable consistently. Okay, then the next steps are really following your data analysis plan. What were your research questions? Do you have demographics? Run descriptives on your demographics, frequencies and percentages, and then test for the assumptions of whatever analysis you propose. If you're doing regressions, t-tests, ANOVAs, correlations, every analysis has its own assumptions that you need to verify. And then once you've checked assumptions, you can address your research questions with your specific test. Okay, so we'll now do a Q&A session. If you have any questions, you can type those in the chat box or the Q&A box. And we'll send everyone a copy of the webinar as well as a copy of the PowerPoint. Like we have a question from John. I did see you for a second there. You raised your hand. I prefer if we could type the questions in. Just with so many participants, the audio gets a little wonky at times, but let's give it a try. Hey, John.
Hello. Hi, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah. Fine, sir. Just a question about the reverse scoring. why is it necessary to enter the data in the other direction before the need to revert? Why is the researcher not entering the data in the order that he wants to analyze the data?
Sometimes that step is done when the data is collected. You know, it's here, let me open the original spreadsheet here. Okay. So reverse coding, sometimes it's done where it corresponded to this item here and this one here, because these are negatively phrased job satisfaction items. Sometimes within the survey itself, it would have been collected as 1 is strongly agree and 5 is strongly disagree. And that's completely fine. Then you can avoid having to reverse code.
Okay.
But many surveys are given in one direction for a Likert scale throughout. They don't like to flip-flop. They like to keep it consistent throughout when the survey is administered. So in that case, which is what happened here, is that they administered every question as 1 is strongly disagree and 5 is strongly agree. So it's up to us to manually reverse code. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can do that during the data collection. Just flip the Likert scale here.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. And then the instrument for collecting data, you know, we talked about the burnout research the last time.
Right.
Not using a monkey survey, but the other data collection instrument where you have to design. I've forgotten the name. You mentioned it today. It just escaped my mind.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
An instrument, no, that design that we use in collecting the data. You mentioned it today in your presentation.
SurveyMonkey or Qualtrics or Amazon? Qualtrics.
Yeah. Do you mind if I approach you so that you help me design my Qualtrics? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely something we can assist with.
Okay, I will write to you and we do that, sir.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
You're welcome, John. Thanks for joining again.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
All right, do we have any other questions? You can type into the chat box or you can raise your hand. It looks like the audio is working okay. Do we have any additional questions? No, okay. If we have no additional questions, I'll go ahead and wrap it up. But thanks for joining, everyone. We'll be doing a session. We do about 8 of these sessions a month. So come join us for the future ones. Have a great evening and take care.